Season 12 is starting off with a bang as we have some massive changes to teleport and long-awaited nerfs to shield bow. We're here to break down everything so you guys can get a perfect read on how the solo queue meta will be shaping out for 12.1. With the help of our challenger players and analysis of the most recent data, we strive to bring you guys the most accurate tier list possible. Our champion rankings are focused heavily around the best picks for Diamond and below, as that's where the majority of the player base lies. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. A few new Elderwood skins will hit the Rift in 12.1 as Rek'Sai and Gnar are on the receiving end. Honestly, a bit surprising to see Rek'Sai nerfed in the same patch as a skin release, as it's usually the other way around. Jumping right into the meat of the changes, Teleport sees its cooldown lowered from 420 scaling to 210 seconds down to 360 seconds at all ranks. That's not all though, as the meta-shifting change is the fact Teleport can only be used on allied towers prior to the 14-minute mark. Bot lane mains rejoice as early TP flank plays no longer exist and 5-man dives bot will become a thing of the past. Don't get too excited though, because after the 14-minute mark, that's when you'll be able to use Teleport exactly how you could in Season 11. The cooldowns past 14 minutes will be 240 seconds. There are many takeaways from these changes, and depending on who you play, the alterations can be a buff or a nerf. Take Kayle top lane for example. TP flank plays are extremely lackluster for Kayle, and her early game teleport usage prior to these changes was almost always to a tower. For those reasons, Kayle doesn't care so much about not being able to teleport on minions and wards. Kayle would much rather have the shorter cooldown to help with her weaker early game and scale into her monstrous final form. On the other hand, someone like Kennen, who has great TP flank potential but can also look for early kills in lane, likely swaps over to Ignite. For pro play, this may not be the case, but for solo queue, many top laners with strong early laning are going to favor teleport less frequently. All in all, we see these TP changes as net positive for scaling champions and net neutral or negative for picks who have strong flank ability. It's also buff for strong bot lane duos, as they'll be able to posture more aggressively and not have to worry about the entire enemy squad showing up. To try and combat Vayne's premier spot in the current meta, Immortal's shield bow will be nerfed. 80 drops by 5, and the lifeline shield is going from 300 scaling to 800 down to 275 scaling to 650. Vayne, Yasuo, Yone, Graves, Viego, Uxin, this list goes on, but many of the top tier fighters will see a decent chunk of power removed in 12.1. Yas and Yone have already been feeling the effects of recent lethal tempo nerfs, so combined with shield bow, their power levels have taken a sizable hit heading into Season 12. Riot's taking things even further by targeting Wit's End. The build path will be altered, while magic resist is dropping from 50 to 40. These two item changes will do a good job at bringing Vayne in line with other top tier marksmen like Jinx and Jhin, but we don't see her falling out of meta just yet. Viego and Uxin have been loving the shield bow and Wit's combination, so their godlike statuses fall off a bit as well. Overall, Riot's done a pretty good job with these nerfs, as they've tackled a bunch of OP picks without directly nerfing anyone. Force of Nature is being strengthened for 12.1 as the absorb stack duration is going from 5 to 7 seconds, while the dissipate magic damage reduction is increased from 20 to 25%. An indirect buff to niche picks including Udyr, Skarner, and Poppy. For someone like Nasus, who gains a ton of benefit from Spirit Visage, we don't see Force of Nature overtaking it. Spirit Visage is just the better defensive option for most tanks. The buffs are nice, but they won't be enough to drastically shift the power of any champion on the tier list. Melee Eclipse users will have some power chopped off, as the passive cooldown will be increased from 6 to 8 seconds. This is actually just a revert of the buff from a few patches ago. Eclipse has been heavily outperforming Duskblade and Prowlers on most AD assassins, so these nerfs will help even out the playing field. Instead of autopilot building Eclipse each game, you'll have to think a little more if it's best for the situation. Graves sees both his viable mythics nerfed in the same patch, so his overall power level will take a hit in 12.1. Although Gangplank has been a consistent performer throughout Challenger and solo queue, he struggles mightily in the lower ranks, which is why Riot's buffing him for 12.1. Q mana cost is lowered from 60 scaling to 40 to 55 scaling to 35. Cooldown on Q is also lowered from 5 to 4.5 seconds. Ever since Grasp was nerfed on GP, his lane bully potential has not been as potent, so these buffs look to compensate for that. For the higher elos, Gangplank will be a solid pick, but since our tier list is catered towards Diamond and below, his placement will remain on the lower end. B tier is where you'll find GP as an average top lane pickup. Taking a look at the complete top lane tier list, Shen and Tahm Kench will reign supreme, locking down OP tier slots. Teleport changes will lead to even more priority for Ignite on Shen. Ignite users actually win about 2% more than TP, so if you haven't made the swap over already, definitely look to do so. Tahm will continue to be one of the most reliable top laners, as the skill required to play him is low in relation to how powerful he is. Uxin top has really picked up traction in high elo as of recent, but will cool off a bit in 12.1 due to shield bow nerfs. Tanks are the best risk to reward top laners for the current meta. Sunfire and Frostfire buffs in preseason have turned champs like Tahm, Shen, Mundo, Malphite, and Poppy into extremely consistent picks. It will be really interesting to see how the top lane meta evolves due to the teleport changes. As new trends emerge, you can bet we'll be the first to fill you in. The highest priority picks to climb low elo the fastest include Teemo, Mundo, and Nasus. A couple of high value bans to consider are Malphite, Teemo, and Tahm Kench. I don't think anybody saw Rek'Sai nerfs coming, but Riot has a couple changes in store. E physical damage will be altered, going from 50 scaling to 90 to 55 scaling to 75. E tunnel cooldown is increased from 26 scaling to 14 seconds to 26 scaling to 18 seconds. It's actually a damage buff for the first 7 levels if you're playing Q Max Rek'Sai. Q-Max does heavily outperform an E-Max in solo queue, so it's a little strange Riot is taking this approach. Rek'Sai is a jungler who wants to be proactive early on, so a buff to offer stronger snowball power is great. Level 7 onwards, you will begin to feel the effects of the change. However, if you're massively ahead early on, it won't matter all too much. Overall, we expect the changes to turn out relatively net neutral, and will continue to rate Rek'Sai as a strong S-tier jungler. Diana was a top-tier jungler for a few patches in Season 11, but got hit with a couple nerfs and slowly fell out of meta. Brighter days are ahead though, as Riot will be offering Diana an AP ratio increase on passive from 40 to 50%, along with passive monster damage ratio going from 250 to 300%. Passive monster damage buff is a revert to the 11.16 nerf, and the AP ratio increase is some extra juice. Diana was in a good state before the 11.16 change, so as a result of this buff, we can expect her to rise back to a similar power level. A good A tier pickup is where we'll be placing Diana for 12.1. The jungle tier list looks very similar to where we left off in Season 11, with a couple minor alterations. Nunu and Warwick are proving to be the elite jungle options, as they're both seeing insane results with buffed Sunfire. Simple and effective junglers who can get around the map extremely fast to affect lanes better than most picks. Viego is moving out of OP tier due to the shield bow and wits end nerfs. Graves will follow suit and drop from S into A due to his mythics and shield bow and eclipse being hit. The junglers you'll want to spam to climb low elo the fastest are Warwick, Trundle, and Nunu. Vi, Viego, and Nunu are optimal ban choices for 12.1. The mid lane meta has seen a very welcome shakeup throughout preseason, most notably with certain mages receiving a nice spike in power. Anivia, Lux, Kassadin, and Victor are at the forefront as the highest priority solo queue picks. It's really no secret how influential Crown of the Shattered Queen has become, and it's a big factor as to why these four are hotly contested. Anivia is by far the most sleeper of the bunch, as the recent Archangel's buffs added another layer of strength on top of Crown. Teleport changes are also great for a champion like Anivia, who wants to use the spell to tower more often than not. Same thing goes for Kassadin. A shorter cooldown on teleport is great to get you past the early game. Our top 3 low elo recommendations for mid lane are Lux, Malzahar, and Annie. A couple good ban options to have on your radar are Victor, Kassadin, and Uxin. Vayne had been the standalone best solo queue ADC in recent patches, but that changes for 12.1. Jinx and Jhin will shift up and join Vayne in OP, as they're the best carries on very similar power levels. As mentioned earlier, Vayne takes a step back this patch due to shield bow and wits end nerfs. We've kept her in OP tier for now though, due to how broken she was before. All we expect the nerfs to accomplish is bringing her in line and on the same level as Jinx and Jhin. Strong scaling marksmen are really liking the current meta, and so many enchanters being played in the support role. Twitch and Cog are performing exceptionally well, but remain on the underrated side of things. A good Draven is going to be loving life in 12.1. No more teleport flank plays means the constant aggression can't be punished as frequently as before. Speaking of teleport, Ziggs gets a nice indirect buff due to the TP changes, as he always uses the spell to towers early on. It will actually be quite interesting to see if teleport makes its way back into meta on specific ADCs who want to bypass the laning phase. Samira has been in a rather underwhelming state for a while now, and with the shield bow nerfs, it's going to hold her back even more. There are so many better options higher up in the tier list, so unless you're a one-trick, we would advise looking elsewhere. Top 3 low elo ADCs for ranked include Vayne, MF, and Jinx. The best bans of the patch are Vayne, Ezreal, and Jinx. Archangel's buffs in preseason led to a massive jolt in strength for Sona, so Riot's issuing a couple nerfs to compensate. Armor growth was lowered from 3.3 to 3, E cooldown is increased from 12 to 14 seconds. Pretty minor nerfs overall, and considering how strong of a state Sona is in, the changes won't be enough to shift her placement on the tier list. Sona will continue to thrive as a very respectable S tier pickup. Soraka, Nami, Lulu, and Blitzcrank are the most OP support picks to begin Season 12. Low-skill floor enchanters like Soraka and Lulu are super reliable as you're always going to provide value to your team. Blitz takes a little more skill to pull off, but is well worth the time and does an amazing job at shutting down these highly contested enchanter picks. Teleport nerfed will allow aggro supports to take back some of the spotlight as well. Blitz, Rel, Maokai, and Leona are a few to keep your eye on, as they're all great aggressive carries for 12.1. You're looking at Soraka, Lux, and Zyra as the godlike supports to climb low elo. Nami, Blitz, and Lulu are all valuable ban options for the current meta. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent challenger players into Elo Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $4.99 a month if you are serious about improving. That's going to wrap everything up for our very first tier list of Season 12. Good luck to everyone in their ranked endeavors, and we will see you in the next one.